Welcome back. Well, today I want to talk about the lowly 22 long rifle. Not so lowly. I mean, it's the most popular cartridge in the world by far. I mean, it pours out of factories at a phenomenal rate that probably nobody could calculate. It's useful. I mean, its usefulness ranges from teaching a youngster to shoot. Keeping your own hand in, practicing through the years. It's a lot cheaper to practice shooting with a 22 long rifle than it is to practice with a 30-06. And it's certainly a lot easier on your wallet. There's so many things that can do well. It excels in accuracy for the competitive game. For those shooters who are shooting internationally or even locally in a local club or something like that. It's ideal for that. It's not very demanding when it comes to the bullet stop. You don't have to have a massive bullet stop in order to handle the 22 ammunition that's going downrange. So it's useful in a lot of ways. But I just came back from the Midway USA website, and I saw 117 current offerings that they sell alone, and ranging from 6 cents per round up to 60 cents per round. And it was virtually everything in between. So how do you go about separating the wheat from the chaff and determining what's best for you? It really isn't hard to do at all. Most people, I would say, they overbuy when it comes to 22s. They pay more than they need to. And simply because they're not assessing their actual needs. They're buying because somebody online is talking about the accuracy, and I've done that too. I've, demonstrated differences in accuracy, but one thing I haven't done is told you to go out and buy a particular ammo because it's more accurate than this one, because that's oftentimes it's neither here nor there. If you're shooting at soda bottles at 40 yards away, virtually any of them will handle the task. The least expensive ones will handle that task. If you're a competitive shooter, at what level are you competing? If you're competing in a local club where you have diverse, skill levels, in local clubs, you can have a stratified level of skill. You can have people who are, shooting, the beginners that are shooting groups like this, and they're shooting against, they're not necessarily handicap matches, and they're shooting against guys that, shoot all into the same X-ring all the time. So with that sort of stratified competition, the X-ring shooter certainly doesn't need to go out and buy Ely 10X ammunition, which, this stuff here, he's not competing against people of equal skill. So you don't need to go out and spend that kind of money. You could probably do very, very, very well at that level by, shooting mediocre ammunition, and save yourself a little bit of money, and you do fine until you get into a different level of playing field. Then when you're competing against another club and you're shooting against their skilled shooter, then you have to, dress up accordingly with the proper ammo. But most people, I think, they spend too much on ammo. Most people would do very, very well to simply buy, the cheap stuff. This isn't necessarily cheap. I mean, there's 800 rounds in here, so even though the cost per shot was very, very low, unless I'm a person who likes to just pour out ammunition from the end of my barrel all day long, or in my case, I got some kids that like to shoot and stuff. So, that can be a handy thing to have, and that can certainly be advantageous. But cost-wise, you might do just as well to buy the 100-round pack, where if you're just going out occasionally and shooting, or maybe you're taking these hunting or something like that, that can be just as much of a bargain. So be careful how much you spend. So that's the cost issue. The person who's at the very, very high level of competition, naturally, all cards are off the table. You know, you pay the necessary money to win. You know, when you're going to the world-class competitions or the Olympics and the gold medal competitions and stuff, if you don't bring along your Ely 10X, you're going to be sorry because the other guy did, and he's going to beat you because he's the same skill level as you, and then it's between ammo quality. But again, be careful not to overspend. What do you do about selecting the different types of ammunition? There are different, the main different types would be the velocity level, the bullet weight, and the bullet style, aside from the accuracy level. Aside from the accuracy level, you have, first of all, the velocity level. Velocity level of most ammunition that's marketed out there is what you call standard velocity ammunition, although I would say in this country that's probably not the case. This country is in love with bulk ammunition, which they just spray constantly downrange. So, you know, those big bulk packs very often are, you know, high velocity ammunition. High velocity ammunition is categorized as any ammunition which surpasses the speed of sound. In other words, supersonic ammunition. Hypersonic ammunition is a term generally used. It's not a firm term that means any particular velocity, but hypersonic 22 ammunition is that ammunition which generally exceeds the classic velocity levels of high velocity ammunition, which was around 1230, 1240, 1285, or something like that. It's below 1,300 feet per second or so. When you get above that 1,300 foot per second mark, most companies will classify their ammunition as hypersonic. So first of all, what's the difference between standard velocity ammunition, which is below 1,100 feet per second, thereabouts, at sea level with standard barometer? The sound barrier is broken at about 1,100 feet per second, roughly. Below 1,100 feet per second, there's no breaking of the sound barrier, and bullets travel very, very freely downrange, and they're not impeded by, you know, the drag of atmospheric pressure around them, which is following hypersonic stuff. They fly all the way from the beginning to the end. There's no disturbance on them other than the natural conditions, the wind and things like that. But they fly true because they don't have to deal with breaking through the sound barrier. They're dropping below the sound barrier. What occurs with a round, which these mini mags, for instance, what occurs with a round that tops the sound barrier, at some point downrange, and we'll say it's generally around 48 or 50 yards or so with these most of the time, at that point, the sound barrier that was broken when it first emitted from the gun bore, it's like a boat wake. If you saw a picture of a bullet in flight at supersonic speeds, there's a wake that goes around that's very much the same shape and form as the type of wake that goes around a boat. If you were to picture a boat going through the water from above, you'd see the same shape and form. And just as a boat, you know, will have an upset if you immediately throw the throttle off and all of a sudden that wake hits the back of the boat. The transom of the boat is slapped in the back by that water and it upsets the boat and it's suddenly unstable. And that's exactly what happens with a bullet in flight. When it drops below the speed of sound, suddenly that wake slaps it in the back and then the bullet is destabilized. How much is destabilized and upset has a lot to do with its original sectional density. It basically, in other words, is bullet form. Higher weight bullets. In other words, bullets. If I'm going for high velocity ammunition, which is above the speed of sound, I'll always pick the ammunition which is loaded with 38 to 40 grain bullets. And that's because those bullets have enough carrying stability beyond that point where that wake has slapped them in the butt. and they resist being upset. They do get upset, but they resist the amount of being destabilized. Whereas when you have hypersonic ammunition, such as this Aguila here, this is 1,700 feet per second. That sounds stunning, and this is a lot of fun to be shooting at watery objects. This is very, very explosive on contact at those 1,700 foot per second speeds, just as is with so many of the different hypersonic ammunition out there. But this stuff falls apart very quickly because it only has a 30-grain bullet. It sheds its velocity very, very fast. Now, I don't know exactly where this drops below the speed of sound, but I wouldn't be surprised if it's around the same place that the high velocity stuff does, because this stuff peels off its velocity very, very quickly, and it probably doesn't get much farther downrange than standard, I should say, classic high velocity ammunition does. One of these days I'll have to do that when we have some better weather. I'll have to do some testing and just see with my chronograph exactly where this does peel off below the sound barrier. But when this stuff goes awry, and this has been my experience with all hypersonic ammo, because they use bullet weights of about 30 or 32, grains, and I've even seen some, I think there were 29 grains, a very, very low bullet weight. When those do drop below the sound barrier, they really, really go crazy. You can have a group which was initially started out at 45 yards, which was, inside 3/4 of an inch or an inch or so, which isn't bad, for that range. And then all of a sudden, 10 yards later, you've got a group that's, 2.5 inches, and that's how badly they're destabilized. So they don't do well. If you're interested in a lot of activity, shooting water balloons or something like that and seeing the activity, this stuff is fun, but don't expect the same reactions when you get down range beyond 50 or 60 yards, because it's not going to be there. The velocity, for one thing, they're no longer going to be hypersonic when they get that far down range. And they're going to be doing about the same speed as all the other regular high velocity ammunition is doing, not too far down range. So if within shorter ranges, they're a lot of fun and useful. Now, they're expensive too. The other thing is, we'll go to so if you're selecting, let me back up a minute. If you're looking for accurate ammunition, you basically stay with the standard velocity ammunition below 1,100 feet per second. This Ely 10X is about 1,040 feet per second, or no, I think it's 1,080 feet per second, which is well below the speed of sound at sea level. So this ammunition, as a matter of fact, if you really want to have super accurate stuff, the manufacturer will collude with you and will help you get a lot that is matched to your particular rifle, because every lot comes out with a little bit different velocity level that might suit certain rifles or pistols better than others. So they'll get together, and they have a pistol 10X too. So, but they'll get together with you if you're willing to buy that kind of quantity. They'll help you match it up. But there's the stuff that's below that, which is not 60 cents a shot. You can have just as much fun with target shooting with standard velocity ammunition, and it's very competent stuff. This stuff here is this yellow box that says target on it. Be very careful of these nebulous terms, target and match and all that stuff. There's no standard for what those terms mean. Some manufacturers, I've seen bulk ammunition marked as target, and the stuff had no accuracy whatsoever, and it had many different sounds as it went off. So you knew that the velocity levels were just all over the place. So those are strictly random terms, but. In any case, the difference between the higher grade stuff for instance, with SK, Ely, and Lapua, those European companies, they really, I think, dominate the scene when it comes to target and accuracy ammunition, competitive ammunition. We're really Federal might have they have a shot at it, I should say, you know, not to make a pun, but there aren't too many U.S. manufacturers that really can hold a candle to what the Europeans are doing, unfortunately, when it comes to ammunition. I don't know why that's the case. They're just simply more inclined towards the competitive market. But the difference between this yellow box and the 10X is really not much more than just the way they run the machinery. They run it faster in order to get out more and keep it cheaper. The quality control is relaxed a little bit, and that's how the price is graded all the way down. In other words, it's the machinery runs faster, less quality control, everything else, and they use maybe less costly components, maybe powder and primers and things. To talk about primers for a moment and the impact that primers have on 22 ammo, and that's a large component with the accuracy issue. The priming compound in a 22, the percentage of priming compound, I should say the percentage of the performance of the ammunition, the velocity of the ammunition is much, much higher with 22s than it is with centerfires. The primer with a centerfire cartridge is barely enough to push the bullet out of the cartridge case and into the bore. It probably wouldn't make, in most cases, it wouldn't make it down the bore more than a half an inch. A primer in a 22 cartridge is sufficient to give it some serious velocity. Some ammunition, as a matter of fact, you know, CB ammunition has been oftentimes loaded with nothing but a primer. So it has a larger component to the whole. It's more meaningful. So if your quantity of primer varies by 10% or so between primer cups in a centerfire cartridge, it's not as meaningful by any means as the 10% differential between 22 shots, 22 primers, because those rimfires they're much more influenced by the amount of care given to the priming compound. And that's a very difficult thing, to smear the exact same amount of priming compound in each of those cases. So that's where a lot of the quality control goes into it. So to make a story short, when you're looking for higher accuracy, stick with the standard velocity stuff. Now, please don't, you know, the industry loves to put out, you know, shiny objects out there so that it attracts your attention. Subsonic ammunition. Subsonic ammunition is standard velocity ammunition. You don't have to feel, because you have a can screwed on the end of your gun, does not mean you have to go out and buy subsonic ammunition. This is subsonic ammunition. Anything that's under 1,100 feet per second is classically subsonic ammunition. It always has been. It wasn't called that until the popularity of silencers came about, and then all of a sudden, because they use the term subsonic, they can capture that little niche market with the people who have cans. It's of no concern with you whatsoever. If your ammunition is below the speed of sound, it's already subsonic. Now, that's not to say that some subsonic ammunition might not, you know, do better than some standard velocity ammunition in your particular gun. It might, but don't be attracted to that shiny object of that name just to attract your attention. No more than, you know, the fact that they put target on a box. Now, when it comes to the bullet shape and type, when you're talking about hollow points and, you know, non hollow point bullets, just the standard lead bullets, the difference between those is not as important as a lot of people associate it. Most games that you would go hunting with 22s really don't need to have. They don't really need to have hollow points. Squirrels and cottontail rabbits, they certainly don't need hollow points. As a matter of fact, it's a cottontail rabbit, a coney, is pretty much dead just at the sound of the shot. They're very frightful little animals. They don't take much killing. Squirrels, the amount of lead that's hitting a squirrel in any case, they're such a small critter. It doesn't take much to kill them. Most people are going to want to hit a squirrel in the head if you want to have anything left to eat, and you certainly don't need to have a hollow point to use on a squirrel's head, and you certainly don't want to have a hollow point that's going to tear up much more meat than is necessary. So hollow points are good for certain things. If you're going out, hunting woodchucks within reasonable range with a 22 long rifle, and I say keep the range reasonable because they take a lot of killing, and make sure you shoot them for the head because they can, even with a hollow point, they can wander off back to their hole if they're struck in the even mortally wounded. They'll die, but they can oftentimes run another 15 or 20 yards back to their hole before they succumb. So those are critters where a heavy hollow point is really highly regarded, and I would stick with the ones that are at least 38 to 40 grains certainly for headshots on woodchucks out to 40 or 50 yards, 60 yards. Our larger jackrabbits, the varying hares, they certainly can take a knocking. So I'd use hollow points on them. Certainly on coyotes, keep the ranges reasonable. 22 long rifles it's a little bit substandard in my view for coyotes, but certainly you want to stick with the heavier bullets in the standard high velocity category, 1275 with a 40 grain bullet. That I would consider that minimum. I would absolutely not use, a light bullet like this with no sectional density, even though the 1700 feet per second means nothing because the bullet just doesn't have any sectional density to penetrate far. And by the time it gets out down range where that animal is, the velocity is way below that initial listing on the box. So the type of plating that they put on the bullet, whether it's copper or whether it's just plain lubrication, don't worry about it in the least. Manufacturers of all 22 ammunition associate the whatever they put on the outside of the bullet with what's necessary for it, and you don't need to worry about whether your 22 ammo is copper plated or not. If CCI produces copper plating on the bullets because they know that it needs it for the velocity level that they're shooting. If they have a plain lead bullet and it's just plain lubrication on it, that's all that's necessary for their bullet at that speed. So don't worry about it. Every one of them are paired correctly. In all my life using 22 ammo, even the cheap stuff, I've never had a leaded bore with a 22 ever. It's never had any lead streaks in a bore whatsoever. So it's all appropriate and it's all perfectly fine. So don't be worrying about spending extra money for copper plating on a bullet. Whatever the coating is fine. Now with some of your European ammo, much of your European ammo, they use a lubrication which is a little bit greasier than we use. We typically in this country have used a waxy coating, probably carnauba wax or something. It's a hard wax that stays, it doesn't rub off on your fingers. That was one of the advertising campaigns back in the 60s and 70s was pocket-proof ammo. A kid could just stuff his pocket full of ammo and he didn't have to worry about the lint inside his pocket or the sawdust that he might have in it from jumping into a sawdust pile. He didn't have to worry about it getting hung up on his ammo. So so-called dry lubrications were developed back about 50 years ago in this country for ammo. And that's not necessarily the case with European ammo, which still uses a greasy substance. They work exactly the same. Their stuff is very, very accurate. But be advised and aware that particular type of lubrication can gum up certain types of actions, especially autos. When I say an auto, I always mean a semi-auto. It can gum up the actions. It can gum up magazines, things like that. So just be aware of that. It's not hard to remove by any means. It's easily removed by mineral spirits or any standard plain gun solvent. So that's all there is to do about lubrication and things. I don't know if there's anything much more to talk about, but that's essentially it. Is don't overspend on ammo. Just buy what's necessary. Look for the deals, and be sure you properly categorize yourself, and don't buy ammunition which is more accurate than you need, and don't worry about reading all these different tests about ammo accuracy, because a lot of times it simply doesn't mean anything to having fun with a 22. Going out and shooting clay targets that are sitting out on a berm 25 or 30 yards away or something. You don't need to have expensive ammunition for doing that, and just racking off one round or another is a lot of fun no matter what's coming out of it. So keep it simple. And but I like to thank my Patreon donors. Your help is fantastic, helpful in these difficult times until we get back on our feet in America. I'm always looking for those thumbs up. Give me those thumbs up and hit the subscribe button. This thing here, I'm working on 300,000 now. So I'm well past the 100,000. I passed the 200,000 mark. So now I'm working on 300,000. I hope I live long enough. But anyway, I'll try to stick around for you. But don't forget to subscribe. God bless.